Statistics say that on the streets of Chicago, the average lifespan of a dropout is 3 years. Hunger kills some. The piercing wind off Lake Michigan kills others. Violence takes the rest. But for Maya, the real killer wasn't the cold and it wasn't the hunger. It was debt. Not the kind you pay with money, but the kind you pay with blood. It was a blistering Tuesday in November. The kind of cold that turns breath into ice crystals before it even leaves your lips. Maya sat on her usual square of cardboard outside the Avenue café, a place where a single latte cost more than her entire weekly food budget. She was 23, though the grime on her face and the hollow darkness in her eyes made her look older. To the passing world, she was just another stain on the sidewalk. Invisible. Disposable. A piece of urban furniture to be stepped over or ignored. She sat with her back against the brick wall, knees pulled to her chest, her oversized, thrifted army jacket swallowing her slight frame. She wasn't begging. She never begged. She was watching. Her eyes, sharp and intelligent beneath the hood of her sweatshirt, scanned the street with the precision of a predator or perhaps prey that had stopped running. That was when the black SUV rolled up. It was an armored Escalade, the windows tinted so dark they looked like voids. It idled at the curb, the engine purring with a low, expensive rumble. The back door didn't open immediately. First, the front passenger door swung out, and a mountain of a man stepped onto the pavement. He was wearing a suit that strained at the shoulders, an earpiece coiled behind his ear, and an expression of pure disdain. He didn't meet her eyes. He looked through her, the way a driver stares past a pothole he intends to drive around. He walked over, his heavy footsteps crunching on the salted concrete. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a crisp, new $100 bill. Benjamin Franklin stared up at the gray sky. The bodyguard didn't hand it to her. He dangled it, like you would a treat for a dog. "Boss wants to sit outside," the bodyguard grunted, his voice gravelly. "He likes the fresh air. He doesn't like the view. Take it and walk, sweetheart. Go buy yourself a bath." Maya didn't move. She didn't reach for the money. Her hands remained tucked deep inside her sleeves. She didn't even look at the bodyguard's face. Instead, her gaze was fixed intently on the plate glass window of the cafe behind him. Specifically, at the reflection of the building across the street. "I said take it," the bodyguard snapped, his patience evaporating. He took a step closer, his shadow looming over her. "You deaf, it's $100. Move." Maya finally spoke. Her voice was quiet, raspy from disuse, but terrifyingly steady. It lacked the tremble of fear that the bodyguard was used to hearing from people in her position. "If I take that money," Maya said, her eyes never leaving the reflection, "you die." The bodyguard blinked. He let out a short, incredulous laugh. "Excuse me, is that a threat, junkie?" "It's physics," Maya replied. She slowly uncrossed her arms, pointing a single dirt-stained finger toward the window glass. "Look at the reflection. 4th floor of the chaotic brick building across the street. 2nd window from the left. The sun is hitting a lens. It's a scope." The bodyguard frowned, confusion warring with his arrogance. "You're big," Maya continued, her voice flat, like she was reading a grocery list. "You're standing exactly 3 feet from the outdoor table. You are currently the only thing blocking the line of sight between that window and the man sitting at table 4. If I take the money, I have to stand up. If I stand up, you step aside to let me pass. If you step aside, the shield is gone." She finally looked up at him. Her eyes were burning with an intensity that made the giant man take an involuntary half-step back. "So," Maya whispered, "keep your money, unless you want your boss's brains on your nice suit." 10 feet away, at table 4, Seo-Jun sat frozen. The young head of the Jang syndicate had been sipping his espresso, bored out of his mind, watching the interaction with mild annoyance. He had expected his man to clear the debris so he could enjoy his morning in peace, but he had heard every word. He slowly lowered his cup to the saucer. The clink of china against china sounded like a gunshot in the sudden silence. He didn't look at the rooftop. He didn't look at his bodyguard. He looked at the girl. He saw the way she sat, balanced, ready to spring. He saw the way she analyzed the angles of most people saw a beggar refusing charity. Seo-Jun watched her stillness and saw a dormant landmine waiting for a footstep. And for the first time in months, the bored prince of Seoul wasn't bored anymore. He was fascinated. Seo-Jun didn't move. He didn't scream. He simply watched the realization dawn on his bodyguard's face. The giant man, paid $300,000 a year to be a human shield, was trembling because a girl in a dumpster-dived jacket had done his job for him. "Boss," the bodyguard stammered, his hand hovering over his weapon, unsure whether to draw or shield. That hesitation saved him, and it saved Seo-Jun. Crack. The sound wasn't like the movies. It was a dry, sharp snap, followed instantly by the violent hiss of concrete disintegrating. A 7.6 tomb round slammed into the pavement exactly where Seo-Jun's chest would have been if he had stood up to leave. Shards of stone sprayed against his tailored suit pants. Chaos erupted. "Sniper, get down, high ground." The café patio transformed into a war zone. 3 other bodyguards burst from the SUV and the café interior, weapons drawn, overturning tables to create cover. Patrons screamed, diving under chairs. The bodyguard who had offered the money tackled the empty air, too slow, too panicked, shouting orders into his wrist mic. "Sector 4, rooftop, I need eyes on." Amidst the screaming and the scrambling, Seo-Jun remained seated. He slowly brushed a speck of concrete dust off his lapel. His heart rate hadn't spiked. If anything, it had slowed down. He didn't look at the rooftop. He didn't look at his panicked men. He looked at the girl. Maya hadn't flinched. She hadn't screamed. While the world around her descended into madness, she simply reached into the deep pocket of her army jacket and pulled out a half-eaten, stale plain bagel. She took a bite, chewing slowly, her eyes bored as she watched the professional killers running around like headless chickens. She looked like she was watching a bad sitcom she had seen 1,000 times before. "Boss, we need to move, the car." The head of security grabbed Seo-Jun's arm, trying to drag him toward the armored vehicle. "We're flushing the building. We'll get the shooter." Seo-Jun ripped his arm away. His grip was iron. "Forget the shooter," Seo-Jun said, his voice cutting through the noise like a razor blade. "But sir..." Seo-Jun stood up, ignoring the potential second shot. He pointed a manicured finger directly at the homeless girl chewing her bagel on the cardboard square. "The shooter is an amateur," Seo-Jun said, his dark eyes gleaming with a terrifying mix of delight and possession. "But her, she's a professional." He looked at his head of security. "Grab her, do not let her leave." The air inside the armored Escalade smelled of stitched Italian leather and high-grade gun oil. Maya didn't scream when the head of security shoved her into the backseat. She didn't flail or beg for mercy. She landed awkwardly against the plush upholstery, her dirty army jacket staining the pristine interior, and immediately sat up. Her eyes didn't dart around in panic. They moved in a grid pattern. Door locks engaged, window thickness 4 inches of bulletproof polycarbonate, partition closed, exit strategy none. The door slammed shut, sealing out the sirens and the screaming crowds. A second later, the other door opened, and Seo-Jun slid in beside her. He was breathless, his composure rattled but not broken. He smoothed his suit jacket, the one still dusted with concrete powder, and turned to face her. The space was too small for 2 people, with this much tension between them. "Who sent you?" Seo-Jun demanded. His voice was low, lethal. He leaned in, invading her personal space, searching her face for a crack in the mask. "A homeless girl who spots a sniper position from a sidewalk reflection. I don't buy it. Who is it? The triads? The FBI? Or is this a setup to get inside my car?" Maya let out a laugh. It was a dry, hollow sound, like dead leaves skittering on pavement. She reached into her pocket. Seo-Jun flinched, his hand going for the gun at his waistband, and pulled out a napkin to wipe a smear of dirt from her cheek. "If I wanted you dead," Maya said, her voice bored, "I would have let that bullet turn your chest into a crater. You think that was an assassination attempt? Please." Seo-Jun narrowed his eyes. He fired a round. He missed by inches. "He missed because he was using a laser sight," Maya corrected, pointing a thumb back toward the window. "I saw the red flash before I saw the scope glint. No professional uses a laser in broad daylight. You can't see the dot on the target, but the target can see the source. It's amateur hour. Or. She paused, her eyes shifting to the back of the driver's head in the front seat. The partition glass was down. The driver, a thick-necked man with sweat beading on his collar, was staring straight ahead, gripping the steering wheel. Or what? Seo-Jun pressed. Or he wasn't trying to kill you, Maya murmured. He was trying to scare you, to make you panic, to force you into the safety of this car. Why? Because a sniper is hard to control, Maya said softly. But a driver takes you exactly where they want you to go. Seo-Jun stiffened. He looked at Maya, then slowly turned his head toward the front seat. Watch his hands, Maya whispered. The driver's fingers were tapping rhythmically against the leather of the steering wheel. Tap, tap, tay-up, tap, tap, tay-up. It's not a nervous tick, Maya said, her voice dropping to a terrifying chill. It's Morse code, ... You understood. He's signaling the all clear to the extraction team. The air in the car vanished. Seo-Jun stared at the back of his driver's head, a man who had been on his payroll for 5 years. The betrayal hit him like a physical blow. Pull over, Seo-Jun commanded. The tapping stopped. The driver's eyes met Seo-Jun's in the rearview mirror. There was no loyalty in them, only panic. I said pull over, Seo-Jun roared. The driver didn't hit the brakes. He reached inside his jacket. Maya didn't wait. Before Seo-Jun could draw his weapon, before the driver could clear his holster, she lunged. She didn't go for the gun. She went for the throat. Maya's movement wasn't violent. It was efficient. She didn't have the muscle mass to overpower a 200-pound man, but she understood leverage. She threw herself over the center console, her body weight crashing into the driver's shoulder. At the same time, she jammed her elbow into the side of his neck, hitting the carotid artery, while her other hand grabbed the steering wheel and yanked hard to the right. The armored Escalade swerved violently. Horns blared around them as the massive vehicle drifted across 2 lanes of traffic. Jesus, Seo-Jun roared, slamming against the door. The driver, momentarily stunned by the impact and the loss of blood flow to his brain, fumbled for his gun. Maya didn't let up. She grabbed the seatbelt strap across his chest and twisted it, using it like a garrote against his throat. Let go of the wheel, she shouted, her voice cutting through the panic. The driver gasped, his face turning red, his hand finally releasing the gun to claw at the belt, strangling him. The weapon clattered to the floorboard. Seo-Jun recovered instantly. He reached forward, grabbing the wheel with one hand to stabilize the swerve, and with the other he produced a sleek silver Beretta from his waistband. He didn't hesitate. He didn't ask questions. Pop, pop. 2 suppressed shots. The driver slumped forward, dead before his head hit the steering wheel. Maya released the seatbelt and scrambled back into the rear seat, breathing hard but not panicked. Seo-Jun kept one hand on the wheel, guiding the car to a screeching halt on the shoulder of the highway. He put the car in park, engaged the hazard lights, and turned to look at her. The silence in the car was deafening. The smell of burnt gunpowder filled the small space. You, Seo-Jun said, his chest heaving slightly, are not homeless. Maya wiped a smudge of the driver's blood off her hand onto her dirty jeans. I just used to be something else. Seo-Jun stared at her. The fascination in his eyes had deepened into something darker. Respect. My security team is blind, he said, holstering his weapon. They missed the sniper. They missed the Morse code. They missed the gun in his hand. You saw everything. He leaned closer. I need a new shadow. Someone who actually sees the threats before they pull the trigger. Maya scoffed. You want me to be your bodyguard? I'm 5'4" and weigh 100 pounds soaking wet. I'm not exactly intimidating. I don't need intimidation. I have plenty of that. I need eyes. I need intelligence. I need you. No, Maya said flatly. She reached for the door handle. Thanks for the ride. I'm getting out. Sit down, Maya Brooks, Seo-Jun said. Maya froze. Her hand hovered over the handle. She slowly turned back to look at him. The playful curiosity was gone from his face. Now he looked like the king of the underworld. "I ran your face through the database the moment you pointed out the sniper," he said, holding up his phone. A digital file displayed her mugshot, cleaner, younger, wearing scrubs. "Maya Brooks, former medical resident at Johns Hopkins, top of your class, disappeared 3 years ago." Maya's face went pale beneath the grime. "Wanted for the murder of Dr. Eris Thorne," Seo-Jun read from the screen. "A murder you claim you didn't commit." He locked eyes with her. "I can give you a job, Maya, a life, protection, or..." He tapped the screen. "I can make an anonymous tip to the Chicago PD right now. Tell them exactly where the fugitive doctor is hiding." Maya stared at him, trapped. "Work for me," Seo-Jun whispered. "Be my eyes, or go to prison for the rest of your life." The elevator doors slid open with a whisper, revealing a penthouse that felt more like a fortress than a home. The walls were glass, offering a panoramic view of the Chicago skyline, a city of light and ice that Maya had just been sleeping beneath. Now she was looking down on it. Seo-Jun didn't give her a tour. He gave her a key card and pointed to a massive mahogany door. "Clean up," he ordered, tossing a garment bag onto a leather ottoman. "We leave in an hour. Don't make me regret this." 40 minutes later, the grime of the streets was spiraling down a marble drain. Maya stood in front of a mirror that cost more than her medical school tuition. The woman staring back wasn't the invisible, huddled shape from the sidewalk. Her skin was scrubbed raw, glowing a deep, rich umber under the harsh bathroom lights. Her hair, washed and coiled, framed a face that was striking, high cheekbones, full lips, and eyes that held too many secrets for a 23-year-old. She opened the garment bag. Inside was a dress that looked like liquid midnight, a floor-length, backless silk gown. Maya pulled it on. It fit perfectly, too perfectly. Most women would have spun in front of the mirror. Maya didn't. She stood perfectly still, closing her eyes. She ran her fingertips along the inside of the bodice, then down the side seams. She felt the fabric, the stitching, the weight. Her fingers stopped at the hemline. A tiny inconsistency, a lump no bigger than a grain of rice. Maya didn't hesitate. She grabbed a pair of nail scissors from the vanity and sliced into the exorbitant silk. The door to the bedroom opened. Seo-Jun walked in, adjusting the cufflinks of a fresh tuxedo. He stopped dead. He had expected a transformation, but seeing Maya Brooks, the doctor, the survivor, the woman standing in his room took the air out of his lungs. "You," Seo-Jun started, his voice losing its usual sharp edge. "You clean up well, Dr. Brooks." Maya didn't blush. She didn't say thank you. She turned to face him, her expression icy, and flicked a tiny, black metallic object at him. It bounced off his chest and clattered onto the hardwood floor. "Your tailor," Maya said, her voice flat, "is on the Russian payroll." Seo-Jun looked down at the chip, then back at her. "A tracker." "Audio transmitter," Maya corrected. "High frequency, and it was sewn into the hem with a polyester blend thread. The dress is 100% silk. The texture was wrong." Seo-Jun stepped closer. He picked up the bug, crushing it between his thumb and forefinger. He looked at Maya with a new expression. It wasn't just respect anymore. It was hunger. The kind of hunger a man feels when he finds a weapon that fits his hand perfectly. "You checked the seams," he murmured, stepping into her personal space. The scent of expensive cologne and danger washed over her. "I check everything," Maya whispered, backing up until her heels hit the dresser. She didn't look at his lips. She looked at his hands. "Paranoia keeps you warm when you sleep on concrete." Seo-Jun reached out, his hand hovering near her waist. He didn't touch her, but the air between them grew heavy, suffocating. He wasn't looking at her like a woman he wanted to bed. He was looking at her like a weapon he wanted to dismantle to see how it worked. "You really are a ghost," he said softly, his curiosity feeling more like a threat than a compliment. "Suspicious. Invisible, lethal." "I'm alive," Maya replied, her hand inching toward the scissors she had left on the vanity. "Which is more than your driver can say." Seo-Jun grinned, a sharp, predatory expression that made him look like the devil himself. "Good," he said, stepping back. Because I need you alive tonight. The 5 families are gathering to pretend we aren't at war. He walked to the door and held it open. Tonight is the peace gala. You're my date, Maya. Try not to kill anyone before the appetizers. The grand ballroom of the Drake Hotel was a sea of black tuxedos and blood-red gowns. It was the annual Peace Gala, a polite fiction where the 5 crime families of Chicago pretended they weren't actively trying to murder each other over territory lines. Seo-Jun walked in with Maya on his arm. The room didn't just quiet down, it froze. He was the youngest Don in the room, the Prince of Seoul, and usually he came alone. Tonight he had a woman who looked like a queen. Maya held her head high, her eyes scanning the room not for admiration but for threats. She clocked the exits 3, the security details 16, and the rival bosses 4. "Don't look so stiff," Seo-Jun whispered, his hand warm on the small of her back. "You're supposed to be enjoying the champagne." "I don't drink on the job," Maya murmured, her eyes tracking a waiter moving too fast near the kitchen doors. A heavy-set man with a scar running through his eyebrow approached them. This was Hanjeol, the head of the Bukgu faction. On his arm was his wife, a woman dripping in diamonds and disdain. "Seo-Jun," Hanjeol boomed, his smile not reaching his eyes. "We didn't expect you, and you brought company." His wife looked Maya up and down, her lip curling in a sneer. She turned to her husband and spoke in rapid, biting Korean. "Where did he find her? She looks like something he picked up off a street corner in Itaewon. American girls have no class." Seo-Jun stiffened. His jaw tightened, ready to defend her. But before he could speak, Maya stepped forward. She offered a polite, traditional bow, perfect in its execution. "Class is not defined by blood, madam," Maya said in flawless, formal Korean. "But manners are, and yours are lacking." The wife's jaw dropped. Hanjeol blinked, stunned. Seo-Jun looked at Maya, his eyebrows shooting up. "My roommate in med school was from Busan," Maya said in English, her voice bored. "She taught me how to swear at people who think I'm stupid. Shall we move on?" She pulled a stunned Seo-Jun away toward the center of the room. "You speak Korean?" Seo-Jun asked, a laugh bubbling up in his chest. "I speak 3 languages," Maya corrected. "Focus, something is wrong." "You just humiliated Hanjeol's wife. That's what's wrong." "No," Maya said, her grip on his arm tightening. "The staff, look at the waiter with the silver tray, the one near the band." Seo-Jun glanced over. "He's just a waiter." "He's sweating," Maya whispered. "It's 68 degrees in here, and he's not looking at the guests. He's looking at his watch." A chime rang out. The host of the evening, a corrupt city councilman, tapped a spoon against his glass. "Ladies and gentlemen," the councilman announced, "a toast to unity." The sweating waiter moved efficiently through the crowd, offering flutes of golden champagne. He stopped in front of Seo-Jun. His hand was trembling ever so slightly as he extended the tray. "Sir," the waiter mumbled, eyes downcast. Seo-Jun reached out. He took the glass. The bubbles fizzed innocently. "To unity," Seo-Jun said, lifting the glass to his lips. Maya watched the waiter's feet. He shifted his weight to his back heel, a runner finding the blocks before the gun goes off. "Don't." Maya didn't politely interject. She chopped her hand downward in a violent martial arc. Her wrist struck Seo-Jun's forearm hard. The crystal flute flew from his hand. It shattered against the marble floor, the champagne splashing onto the pristine shoes of the rival Don. The room went dead silent. "What the hell are you doing?" Seo-Jun hissed, grabbing her wrist. Maya ignored him. She was staring at the spilled liquid on the floor. It was fizzing, but not like champagne. It was bubbling against the wax polish of the floor like acid. "Don't drink it," she whispered, her voice trembling with adrenaline. "Look at the floor." The silence in the ballroom stretched tight, a rubber band ready to snap. The spilled champagne wasn't just bubbling. It was eating into the wax finish of the Drake Hotel's marble floor. Seo-Jun stared at the wet stain, his hand still suspended in the air where the glass had been a second ago. The fury drained from his face, leaving behind a stillness that was far more dangerous than his shouting. Maya didn't wait for permission. She snatched a white linen napkin from a nearby table and dropped it onto the puddle. She pressed it down with the heel of her stiletto. When she lifted it, the fabric wasn't gold. It was a stark, vibrant blue. Cyanide derivative, Maya announced, her voice carrying through the hush. Reacts with the starch in the linen, fatal in under 30 seconds. She looked up, locking eyes with the sweating waiter. You didn't offer it to anyone else, she said. Just him. The waiter's face crumbled. Panic, raw and ugly, took over. He dropped the silver tray. It clattered loudly, echoing like a gunshot, and bolted toward the kitchen doors. Get him, Seo-Jun roared. His voice broke the spell. His security detail, desperate to redeem themselves after the sniper fiasco, surged forward like a pack of wolves. They tackled the waiter before he even reached the swinging doors, pinning him to the carpet in a flurry of fists and shouts. The ballroom erupted into chaos, screams, shattered glass, and the thud of bodies. Seo-Jun didn't watch the apprehension. He didn't care about the assassin. He turned slowly to Maya. She was standing amidst the wreckage of the evening, calm, composed, wiping her hands on a clean napkin. She had saved his life twice in 12 hours. He grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the exit. We're leaving, now. The ride back to the penthouse was heavy with unsaid words. The rain had started again, streaking the windows of the backup SUV. Seo-Jun sat on the leather bench across from Maya, watching her. She was staring out at the blurred city lights, her posture rigid. Why? Seo-Jun asked softly. Maya didn't look at him. Why what? Why save me? He leaned forward, closing the distance between them. You could have let me drink it. You could have let the cyanide do its work. In the confusion, you could have walked out the front door and disappeared. No debt, no cage, you would have been free. Maya finally turned her head. Her eyes were dark, tired, but clear. Freedom is expensive, Seo-Jun, she whispered. He reached out. This time he didn't check for a wire. He didn't look for a weapon. He placed his hand gently against her cheek, his thumb brushing the line of her jaw. It was an intimate, shocking gesture. I kidnapped you, he murmured. I threatened you, I am a monster. I know what you are, Maya said. She didn't lean into his touch. She remained rigid, her eyes tracking the movement of his thumb against her jawline as if it were a knife blade. But you're the only monster I've met who keeps his word. The waiter lied. The sniper lied. You just threatened me with the truth. Seo-Jun looked at her, his finger lingering on her pulse point. It was beating too fast. She wasn't comforted by him. She was calculating the risk of him. Truth is a weapon, Maya, he whispered, not pulling away. Don't mistake it for kindness. He opened his mouth to speak, to perhaps offer something other than threats when the world exploded. Light flooded the cabin, blinding, white light from the side window. A horn blared, deafening and close. Crunch. A semi-truck slammed into the side of the SUV at 60 miles an hour. The armored glass shattered. The world spun. Metal screamed against metal as the car flipped, rolling over and over into the wet darkness of the intersection. The peace was over. The war had begun. The world was upside down. The smell of gasoline and burnt rubber choked the air. Seo-Jun opened his eyes, but his vision was a blur of shattered glass and darkness. He was hanging from his seatbelt, the blood rushing to his head, pounding like a war drum. He tried to move his left arm, and a scream tore from his throat, a raw, animal sound he didn't recognize as his own. Stop moving. The voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. Maya was already outside. She had kicked out the remaining glass of the passenger window and was crawling back in. She wasn't panicked. She was efficient. A knife flashed in her hand, a jagged piece of metal she must have pulled from the wreckage. This is going to hurt, she warned. She slashed his seatbelt. Seo-Jun dropped, hitting the roof of the overturned car with a groan that rattled his teeth. Maya grabbed his collar, hauling him out onto the wet asphalt. My men, Seo-Jun gasped, trying to look back at the front seat. Dead, Maya said. She didn't look back. She pointed to the flashing lights approaching from the south. And those aren't ambulances. Those are cleanup crews. Move. She didn't wait for him to agree. She grabbed his good arm and pulled. For the first time, the roles were reversed. In the penthouse, he was the king. Here, in the rain-slicked alleyways and shadows of the underpass, he was a tourist. Maya was the queen. She led him to a rusted grate behind a dumpster. She pried it open with practiced ease and dropped into the darkness. Seo-Jun hesitated. "Down," she commanded, "unless you want to be a headline." He followed. They descended into the bowels of the city, an abandoned subway maintenance tunnel that smelled of damp earth and rust. This was her world. She navigated the maze without a flashlight, counting steps, avoiding puddles, knowing exactly where the rats nested. They collapsed in a small concrete room that had once been a break room. Seo-Jun slid down the wall, his face gray, sweat beading on his forehead despite the freezing cold. His left arm was bent at a sickening angle. Maya knelt beside him. She didn't offer comfort. She offered triage. Ulna fracture, displaced, she diagnosed, her hands ghosting over the injury. "I have to reset it. If I don't, the swelling will cut off circulation and you'll lose the hand." "No painkillers," Seo-Jun grit out, his breath coming in shallow rasps. "You have adrenaline," Maya said flatly. She ripped a strip of fabric from the hem of her ruined silk dress and balled it up. "Bite this." Seo-Jun glared at her, but he took it. Maya placed her knee against his chest for leverage. She gripped his wrist and elbow. She didn't count to 3, she just pulled. Crack. Seo-Jun bit down so hard he tasted blood. His vision went white, then black, then slowly returned. The bone was straight. Maya was already splinting it with a piece of wood from a broken pallet and the rest of her sash. "Breathe," she ordered, checking his pulse. "You're in shock." Seo-Jun spit out the fabric, gasping for air. The pain was blinding, but clarity was returning. He looked at her, covered in grease, blood, and silk, and realized he knew nothing about her. "You killed someone," he whispered, the adrenaline making him reckless. "The file said Dr. Eris Thorne, you're attending." Maya froze. She finished tying the knot on the splint, her movements precise. "He wasn't my attending," she said softly, her voice echoing in the damp tunnel. "He was my fiancé, and he didn't like it when I corrected his diagnoses. One night he decided to correct me with his fists. He didn't expect me to fight back. He fell, hit his head on the counter. I tried to save him, but the police saw a dead, brilliant surgeon and a jealous girlfriend." She looked at Seo-Jun. "I didn't murder him. I survived him." Seo-Jun stared at her. The silence stretched between them, heavy and cold. He didn't offer pity. He didn't offer validation. He looked at the blood on her hands, his blood, and nodded once, slowly. "Good," Seo-Jun murmured, his voice void of comfort. "Then you know the difference between a victim and a casualty." Maya opened her mouth to respond, to defend herself, when she stopped. Her head snapped toward the tunnel entrance. Clump, clump, clump. Heavy boots on concrete, tactically spaced, not police. "They found us," Maya whispered, blowing out the single candle she had lit. Darkness swallowed them. "Don't breathe." The darkness didn't protect them. It only delayed the inevitable. A blinding white floodlight cut through the gloom of the maintenance tunnel, pinning them against the concrete wall like insects under a microscope. Seo-Jun shielded his eyes, his broken arm throbbing in rhythm with his heart. Maya didn't flinch. She stared into the light, her body tense, calculating odds that were rapidly dropping to 0. "Impressive," a voice echoed from behind the glare. "Most rats scurry away. You two buried yourselves." The silhouette of a man stepped forward, flanked by 6 heavily armed mercenaries. He was older, wearing a pristine beige trench coat that looked absurd in the filth of the tunnel. Seo-Jun's breath hitched. "Uncle Minho." "Nephew," Minho smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a man looking at a dying animal. "You've made a mess of the family business. I'm here to clean it up." "You sent the sniper," Seo-Jun spat, struggling to stand. "You rigged the car." "I did what was necessary," Minho shrugged. He turned his attention to Maya. He looked her up and down, nodding the silk dress ruined by grease and the defiant tilt of her chin. And you, Minho said, signaling one of his men. The mercenary stepped forward and tossed a heavy metal briefcase at Maya's feet. It landed with a dull thud. You're the stray dog he picked up, the doctor. Minho kicked the case open. It was packed with stacks of $100 bills. $1 million, Minho said, his voice echoing off the damp walls. Untraceable. Walk away, Dr. Brooks. Walk out of this tunnel, disappear, and live your life, or stay and die with a failure. Maya looked down at the briefcase. It was heavy, industrial, and ugly. It didn't look like freedom, it looked like a tombstone. She looked at Seo-Jun. He was slumped against the concrete, clutching his splinted arm. His face was gray, sweat cutting through the grime on his forehead. He didn't look like the Prince of Seoul anymore. He looked like the boy who had been terrified in the car, tapping Morse code on a steering wheel, waiting for someone to save him. Maya, he whispered. It wasn't an order, it was a prayer. Maya bent down. Her fingers brushed the cold metal of the handle. She didn't hesitate. She closed the latches with a definitive, hollow snap that sounded louder than a gunshot in the confined space. She picked it up. I'm a survivor, Seo-Jun, she said. Her voice wasn't apologetic. It was ice. It was the voice of the girl who had sat on a cardboard square for 3 years and watched the world walk by. I don't die for lost causes. The hope in Seo-Jun's eyes didn't just fade. It shattered. The connection they had built in the silence of the tunnel, the recognition of 2 monsters in the dark, severed instantly. He laughed. It was a wet, broken sound that scraped against his throat. I knew it, he sneered, though the tears pricking his eyes betrayed the rage in his voice. I knew it. You're just a street rat after all. Go on. Run. Maya didn't flinch at the insult. She didn't look back at him. She adjusted her grip on the handle, the knuckles turning white, and turned toward the exit. The mercenaries parted to let her through, their weapons trained on the man she was leaving behind. They looked at her with amusement, the way wolves look at a scavenger fleeing a kill. She walked past the lead mercenary. She walked past the light. She stepped out of the halo of the floodlight and into the suffocating darkness of the tunnel beyond. Behind her, the only sound was the heavy, ragged breathing of a man who realized he was finally, truly alone. Maya Brooks kept walking. She had survived the cold, the hunger, and the debt. Now she had survived him. Subscribe and hit the like button so you don't miss part 2.